Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to 2A News Now, and I really appreciate you taking your time tuning into my video. Details have been leaked about Joe Biden's executive action for universal background checks. The Biden administration is planning executive action to put universal background checks in place. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, called on the Biden administration to act under the auspices of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and issue and make effective more regulations on gun sales. Blumenthal's push for executive action on gun control would entail a change in the definition of who or what constitutes a gun dealer. The change in the definition would be in light of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, an act which Senator John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, brokered with Democrats and would usher in a broadened requirement for background checks on gun sales. And Gun Owners of America is already planning a lawsuit. But Congress should act as well. Congress must repeal the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was a compromise with the Biden administration that the Republicans should never have struck. It has been completely weaponized, and gun owners have gained nothing. And America is not any safer. Cornyn Murphy has to go. Congress must also participate in the rulemaking process and voice its opposition to backdoor universal background registration checks during the public notice and comment period. After commenting during the proposed rule phase, Congress must also take up a joint resolution of disapproval pursuant to the Congressional Review Act and strike down this unconstitutional infringement. The Cornyn-Murphy compromise was a big mistake. Here's what we know about the upcoming executive action on universal background checks. First of all, universal background checks, especially when implemented by executive order, are a blatant infringement with no basis in the text or history of the Second Amendment. The proposal is expected to be released soon, with the final rule to be published in the second half of 2024. Anti-gunners are rebranding private firearm sales as the gun seller loophole and the growing digital loophole to justify executive action. Rather, the passage of a new law, fail to register, will carry a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Expect anyone that makes a profit, perhaps as little as $1, to be prohibited from selling their privately owned firearms without a federal firearms license or a background check. Expect a maximum number of firearms sales that a private citizen may engage in per year without needing a federal firearms license. Anti-gunners want to limit collectors and sellers to 5 guns or fewer per year. An Obama-era regulation would have set the threshold to even 1 or 2 sales. At the same time, the Biden administration will increase its use of bank records to target gun owners and gun sellers. Let me explain why universal background checks are actually registration checks. All background checks require the buyer to complete a 4473 form. The firearm transaction record includes the buyer's name, address, and social security number, and other details about them and their firearm. The Biden administration has required these records to be kept permanently by gun stores, and they are scanned into a digital and searchable ATF database when a gun shop goes out of business. These forms are used to trace firearms to their owners and constitute a form of gun registration. Forms 4473, transformed by the Biden administration into permanent gun registration forms, are the only enforcement mechanism for universal background checks, as they would prove who obtained a firearm legally and has a Form 4473 to prove it, and who did not complete the required registration form and therefore has violated the law. Universal background checks require gun registration, and we all know where that leads to. It leads to gun confiscation. So somehow the Biden administration and Joe Biden himself, sometime soon, are going to release their plan for executive action for universal background checks, which is absolutely unconstitutional. Anything like that needs to go through Congress. And of course, when this is announced, there will be tons of lawsuits. As always, I would really like to hear your thoughts about the story in the comments section down below. And I appreciate everybody that supports the channel. You guys are always rocking it by liking, sharing, and subscribing and hitting those post notifications. And I'm very grateful that you do so. And I invite everybody back to see my next video.